We're all in this together. You know, the history of the New York Rifle and Pistol Association, the NRA, from the inception has been very, very close. The NRA was started in 1871 right here in New York State. It was started by some Yankee generals who didn't like the way my Southern boys had the ability to shoot in what we call the War of Northern Aggression. Now, y'all might call it the Civil War, but we call it the War of Northern Aggression down south. But that was the very reason that they started the National Rifle Association, was to teach and train the civilian in the use of the standard military firearm. And I am one who still feel very strongly that that is one of our most greatest charges that we can have today, is to train the civilian in the use of the standard military firearm, so when they have to fight for their country, they're ready to do it. Also, when they're ready to fight tyranny, they're ready to do it. Also, when they're ready to fight tyranny, they have the wherewithal and the weapons to do it. I charge you, ladies and gentlemen, that that is a very important charge for all of us to take up. It's a sacred duty for all of us to maintain. We've received it from our ancestors. You think about the War of Independence. You think about Valley Forge. You think about George Washington and the privations that they served there. No, half of them didn't have shoes, very few clothing. There was blood all over the place if you read Washington's Chronicles from Valley Forge, because their feet were bleeding. They didn't have any footwear to wear. But what did they do? They fought, and they defeated the most powerful military force known to that time in civilization. Citizen soldiers, people who had a sense of freedom, people who are willing to fight and die for that sense and freedom. And it's still true today. You know, the NRA was just a glorified shooting club up until about 1968. At that time, Thomas Dodd, father of Chris Dodd, was a senator, and Stuart Symington and some other senators got together, and they tried to ban all firearm ownership. And we were able to craft a compromise, the 1968 Safe Streets Act, but it became very clear that this was a political issue. The NRA was not ready, was not prepared to fight a political battle. So what did we do? In 1975, we set up the Institute for Legislative Action, the very body that Chris Conte worked so well for. And that's when we got into the political game. In 1977, we had a massive turnaround of our direction in the meeting at Cincinnati. My dad was the chair of that meeting. He chaired that meeting for 12 hours. Lasted all night. And then at the end of the night, Harlan Carter was given the head of ILA. Admiral Lloyd Mustin, a Rear Admiral in the Navy, was given the presidency. And the NRA was a totally different and changed organization. Its number one charge was to protect and defend the Second Amendment. And our policy, which has been tried and true from that time, is that we elect those people who support the Second Amendment. If you're pro-gun, we support you. If you're anti-gun, we're going to beat you. That's when NRA started to grow. 1 million members by 1982, 2 million members by 1990. Under Wayne LaPierre, we've grown to 4.5 million members, and we're still growing. Interestingly enough, there's about 18 to 20 million people who would fight you if you told them they were not a member. Now, of course, our problem is we need to figure out how to sign them up and get their dues. There are 80 million gun owners, at least 80 million. Depends on who you listen to. They could be upwards of 200 million gun owners. We need to get those people involved in what we're doing. Now, we're at a juncture. I'm an old football jock, and I sort of put things in football perspective. But we're about on the 30-yard line. It's about third quarter. The NRA, I can assure you, is dug in, and we're whooping their ass everywhere we can go, right and left, up and down. But this fight has just begun. This fight has just started. And I get so sick and tired of all these people with this fake president that we got who wants to say, well, you know, he hadn't done anything bad for gun owners. I said, let me tell you something bad that he's done. His entire administration is anti-gun, anti-freedom, anti-Second Amendment. You've got Cass Sustine,